Ever been out on a lonely highway at night and felt like something's watching you, but when you check your mirrors, there's nothing there? What if I told you sometimes that nothing isn't really nothing? I'm a long-haul trucker. Been driving rigs across the country for more years than I care to admit. I've seen a lot on these roads. Storms that could rip a truck in two, wild animals darting across the highway, and all kinds of folks looking for a midnight ride or a quick chat at a truck stop. But what I'm about to tell you, that's something else entirely. This happened a couple of years ago, late fall, just after Halloween, the kind of night where the wind howls through the trees and the air feels like it's crawling under your skin. I was hauling freight from Dallas to St. Louis, a long drive but nothing out of the ordinary. Or so I thought. It was just past midnight when I hit this stretch of highway that I swear was carved out of nowhere. No towns for miles, no gas stations, no other cars. Just me and the black ribbon of asphalt stretching into oblivion. The kind Dove road where even your headlights seem to disappear in the vast emptiness. I flicked on the CB radio, hoping for some company or at least a sign of life. But all I got was static and faint whispers buried beneath it. I shrugged it off. Probably just some interference. But then came the silence. Not the peaceful kind you expect at night, but the heavy, suffocating kind that presses down on you and makes your skin crawl. It was like the whole world had paused, like the night was holding its breath, and then I heard it. Faint at first, like the wind brushing against the window, but clearer than that. Whispered voices. Names I didn't recognize. Jack. The name sliced through the quiet like a knife. I spun my head around, eyes scanning the cab. Nobody there. Just me, the radio crackling softly, and the road stretching out ahead. I told myself it was just fatigue playing tricks. Driving those long hours alone will mess with your mind. You start hearing things, voices, footsteps, creaks, even when there's nothing there. But it wasn't like that. These whispers were different. They were personal, like something was trying to get my attention. Jack, you can't hide. That's when I noticed the mirrors. Every time I glanced, it felt like eyes were burning into my back. I tried to shake the feeling, but it was real, almost like something unseen was there, just beyond the edge of the glass. The shadows outside seemed to move on their own, twisting and stretching in ways no normal shadow should. Trees bent unnaturally, branches reaching out like fingers. Clawing at the night, I blasted the high beams, trying to catch whatever it was, but the road behind me was empty. No car, no truck, nothing. But the whispers didn't stop. They grew louder. Suddenly, the static on the CB crackled louder. Then came a voice, low, raspy, almost like it was coming from beneath the earth. Don't look back. I slammed the radio off, heart hammering like a drum. The truck rumbled beneath me, engine growling as if it was angry too. That's when I saw it, a flickering road sign up ahead. It was old, barely hanging onto its post. The letters were chipped and fading, but I made out the words, "Turn back." Nawi slowed down, eyes wide, a chill running up my spine. Was it some kind of prank? Some faded warning left by road crews? I told myself to keep going. No way I was letting some creepy sign stop me. But that's when the whispers turned into full sentences. Voices speaking directly to me, warning me, threatening me. You shouldn't be here. They're watching. The unseen waits. I gripped the wheel tight. The road stretched out like a tunnel of shadows. When I pulled off at the next rest stop, a place not marked on any map, the air was thick with cold and something else. The lights were flickering. The whole place looked abandoned. I stepped out and felt eyes on me, and then in the tree line I saw them. Glowing eyes. Watching. Waiting. They blinked and disappeared. That night, I learned the hard way that some roads lead to places you don't want to go, and some passengers you can't see never really leave. When I climbed back into my rig, I locked every door, every window, and prayed that the whispers would stop. But I knew better. Something unseen had climbed in with me, and it was riding shotgun. You ever get the feeling you're not alone, and no matter how loud the road is, the silence inside your head just gets louder? I didn't sleep that night. Hell, I didn't even try. After what I saw at that rest stop, those eyes in the woods, that eerie road sign, and those whispers that knew my name, I just kept driving. I figured if I kept moving, maybe I could outrun whatever was chasing me. Spoiler, I couldn't. It started small. The air inside the cab felt thicker somehow. Not hotter, not colder, just heavier, like breathing through a wet towel. Every breath I took felt labored, and every exhale fogged the windshield, even though the heater was off. I cracked a window. No change. I turned up the music. Didn't help. The whispers didn't care. In fact, they liked the music. They whispered through it, hiding in the spaces between the lyrics, riding the beat like ghost passengers, talking over the chorus. Don't. Stop now. They see you. You brought this on yourself. I slammed the volume down and just drove in silence, white-knuckled, heart thudding. The rearview mirror became my worst enemy. Every time I glanced at it, something was wrong. The road behind me didn't look right. It wasn't just empty. It was wrong. Too dark, like the truck was dragging some kind of black fog with it. Once I caught a flash of movement in the mirror. Like something ducked down in the back of the cab, I stopped the truck on the shoulder and flung the door open, grabbed my flashlight and scanned every inch of the back. Nothing, just my duffel bag, a few food wrappers, a thermos. Nothing human. Nothing, alive at least, nothing I could see. Now here's the thing most folks don't know. A lot of long-haul rigs have these small sleeping cabins behind the seats, little bunks with curtains you can pull for privacy. Mine had one. I rarely used it, too cramped, too dark. That night I wished I didn't have it, because the curtain was moving, not swaying from the truck's motion. Moving, like someone was breathing behind it. The fabric bulged ever so slightly, then pulled back in, like something had shifted behind. I stopped the truck right there in the middle of the highway, engine idling, and just stared. I wasn't opening that curtain. Not yet. Not while I was still pretending there was a logical explanation for all this. That's when I noticed the windows fogging up again. But this time, not from me. There were handprints from the inside. Long, streaky, greasy handprints, dragging down the glass, like someone was inside trying to claw their way out. I wiped them clean only for them to return a few minutes later. The whispers? Louder, faster, panicked now, not just to me, but to each other. He sees us. Not yet. We need more time. He's starting to remember. That last one hit like a slap to the face. Remember what? Eventually my body gave up. Adrenaline can only carry you so far, you know. I don't even remember pulling off the road or shutting the engine off. I must have passed out in the driver's seat, slumped against the door like a rag doll. When I woke up, it was dawn, and the whispers were gone, but something else was there. It was on my forearm, a perfect circle etched into my skin like a burn, but cold to the touch. Not painful, not itchy, just there, like it had always been, a symbol I couldn't recognize. Looked kind of like an eye, surrounded by teeth. I stared at it for a long time, feeling something old and deep twist inside my gut. The curtain behind me was still closed, but I knew something had come out while I was asleep, or worse. Something had climbed in. I didn't want to stay there. I fired up the truck and pulled back onto the road, eyes burning, mind racing, but there was something different about the truck now. It hummed, not mechanically, spiritually. Like the whole damn thing had absorbed something during the night. The cab felt less like a machine and more like a coffin, and I was starting to wonder if I was already dead, and just hadn't realized it yet. The road stretched endlessly before me, swallowed by an unnatural fog that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. The headlights of my rig barely pierced the dense mist, casting long, wavering shadows that danced, like specters along the roadside. The air inside the cab felt thick, each breath a struggle against an unseen weight pressing down on my chest. I kept my eyes fixed on the road, knuckles white against the steering wheel, heart pounding in my ears. The whispers had returned, soft at first, like a distant murmur, but now they were louder, clearer, as if the very fog carried them. "You can't outrun us." I flinched, my gaze darting to the rearview mirror. Nothing, just the swirling grayness, closing in from all sides. The temperature inside the cab dropped suddenly, my breath fogging in the air. I reached for the heater, but it sputtered and died, leaving me in a biting chill. The whispers grew more insistent, now accompanied by faint scratching sounds, like nails dragging across the metal walls of the truck. "Turn back." I slammed my foot on the accelerator, desperate to escape the oppressive fog and the voices that seemed to be closing in on me. But the road ahead remained shrouded, an endless tunnel of grey. Then, through the mist, I saw them. Eyes. Glowing faintly, hovering just above the ground in the periphery of my vision. At first there was just one pair, then another and another, dozens of them, scattered along the roadside, watching, waiting. I jerked the wheel, swerving to avoid an unseen obstacle. The truck fishtailed, tires screeching against the slick pavement. I fought to regain control, heart racing, as the eyes blinked in unison, vanishing the moment I looked directly at them. "They're not real," I muttered to myself, trying to steady my breathing. Just exhaustion, just the fog playing tricks. But deep down I knew that wasn't true. The whispers had stopped. In their place a new sound emerged, a low guttural growl reverberating through the cab. I froze, eyes scanning the fog for any sign of movement. The growl came again, closer. This time followed by a scraping noise like claws dragging across metal. I glanced at the side mirror. A face, pale, twisted, with hollow eyes staring back at me from the mist. It grinned, a slow, deliberate smile that sent a chill down my spine. "You can't escape." I slammed the brakes, the truck skidding to a halt. My heart thudded painfully in my chest as I stared at the mirror, but the face was gone. I opened the door, stepping out into the fog, the ground cold and damp beneath my boots. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the whispers returned, now a cacophony of voices all speaking at once. "You shouldn't have come. They see you." "It's too late." I spun around, searching for the source, but saw nothing. Only the swirling fog and the oppressive silence that followed. Suddenly a figure emerged from the mist, a man, or what appeared to be one. Tall, gaunt, with hollow eyes and a face twisted in a grotesque grin. He reached out a hand, fingers elongated and ending in sharp, claw-like nails. "Join us," he rasped, his voice like dry leaves scraping together. I staggered back, heart racing, as the figure advanced. The fog seemed to part around him, revealing more of his form. His skin stretched tight over bones, his mouth hanging open in a silent scream. I turned and ran, the growls and whispers chasing me, echoing in my ears. My breath came in ragged gasps as I sprinted back to the truck, slamming the door shut behind me. I fumbled for the keys, hands trembling, and started the engine. The truck roared to life, and I threw it into gear, tearing down the road, away from the fog, away from the eyes, away from the thing that had been following me. But the fog didn't lift. It clung to the truck, swirling around it, as if it were alive, feeding off my fear. And the eyes? They were still there, watching, waiting. I was back on the highway, barreling through that cursed fog, still shaking from whatever the hell I saw back there. My heart hadn't slowed down since I left that whispering nightmare behind. Or thought I had, but no matter how fast I drove, the fog stayed thick and cold, wrapping itself around the truck like a parasite. So it moved with me, matched my speed, almost like it had hitched a ride. And that's when the smell started, like old metal and rotted meat. The kind of stink that gets into your nose and doesn't leave. It wasn't coming from outside. This was in the cab. I checked under the seats, my food stash, the glove box. Nothing. And then something truly chilling happened. I felt the seat shift, just slightly, like someone, or something, had settled in next to me. I didn't want to look. I really didn't, but curiosity is a hell of a thing when it's twisted up with fear. I turned my head slow as molasses and stared at the passenger seat, empty, but the fabric was indented, like it was bearing weight. My skin went cold. Not from fear, from the literal breath of cold air on the side of my neck, and then came the whisper, right in my ear. "You were warned." I swerved hard, tires screaming, rig veering dangerously close to the ditch before I wrestled it back under. Control. I was shaking so badly my hands barely stayed on the wheel. This wasn't hallucination. This wasn't just some spooky fog. Something was in the truck. With me. I kept glancing at the curtain to the sleeper cabin. That damn curtain. Still closed. Still motionless, but I knew something was behind it. It wasn't just a gut feeling anymore. The air back there was alive, humming, like the space had folded in on itself and something had crawled in through the crack. I pulled into an abandoned gas station just off a forgotten exit. One of those places that looked like it hadn't seen a soul in 20 years, windows cracked, weeds growing through concrete. I had to look. Whatever was riding with me, whatever had followed me from the fog, it was hiding back there. I reached for the curtain, hand trembling, pulse thudding, in my throat, and just before I touched it, it moved. I jumped back, banging my elbow on the door. The curtain didn't sway. It twitched. Like a spasm, then it bulged out, just slightly, like something was pushing against it from the inside, and then it whispered. "I've been here longer than you think." I backed out of the cab in a full-blown panic, nearly falling down. The steps. I stood in the pale morning light, if you could even call it morning anymore, gasping, staring at the truck like it had turned into some kind of coffin on wheels. I don't know how long I stood there. 10 minutes, an hour. But eventually the curtain stilled. The cab went silent. The whispers faded. I knew I had to keep moving. I was in the middle of nowhere. No signal, no passing cars. Just me, this cursed truck, and the thing that had claimed a seat inside. I climbed back in, hands numb. The curtain hadn't moved. I avoided looking at it. I told myself I could make it a few more hours. Deliver the load, get to a crowded city. Somewhere with people, lights, answers. But deep down, I knew I wasn't escaping anything, because the whispers had already gotten inside me. And now, the passenger didn't need to speak to be heard. As I drove, strange things started happening inside the cab. The mirrors adjusted themselves. The radio changed stations, not to music, but to breathing. Sometimes I saw fingerprints appear on the inside of the windshield. Or words in the condensation, "Stay with us. You never left. You remember, don't you?" That last one again, always that one. And I was starting to remember. Flashes, dreams, maybe memories. A long stretch of road I'd driven before. Time I'd blacked out at the wheel, a crash, an overturned truck, blood in the cab, screaming. What if I never left the fog? What if I never survived the crash? What if this wasn't a road, but a purgatory, a place for drivers who never made it, route for the restless dead who still think they're alive? And that unseen passenger, he wasn't a hitchhiker. He was the one who came after, the collector, the keeper of the whispers. I don't remember falling asleep, but I do remember waking up. The engine was still running, humming low like a lullaby sung by something with sharp teeth. My hands were still on the wheel. My foot hovered over the gas pedal. It was like my body had frozen while my mind had gone somewhere else, somewhere darker. I looked around, still fog, still nothing but trees on either side, pressed, close like they were listening, but something felt wrong, different, like I'd been here before. I checked my GPS, no signal, again. But the last logged location before it went dark, mile marker 237, Highway 17. I blinked. That couldn't be right. I'd passed that marker over an hour ago. Was sure of it. Then 20 minutes later, as I kept driving, at hands trembling, mind unraveling, I saw it again. Mile marker 237, exactly the same leaning post. The same spray-painted number fading in the middle. The same crow sitting on top of the signpost, staring at me with milky white eyes. Not another one. The same one. I cursed and slammed the steering wheel, fighting the rising panic. I was looping. Somehow I was driving in circles, no, worse, like I was stuck on a tape that kept rewinding itself while I kept pressing play. The more I tried to rationalize it, the more the whispers inside the cab stirred. They weren't taunting anymore. They were laughing, mocking, round and round. Now you understand. This road belongs to us. I pulled over and jumped out of the truck. The silence outside was suffocating. There were no birds, no wind, just the oppressive. Nothing. I walked ahead on foot, leaving the truck behind. I needed to know I wasn't crazy. That the road didn't just loop forever like some sick horror carousel. 10 minutes of walking, and there it was again, mile marker 237, and behind me, the truck, sitting right where I'd parked it. Only, I'd walked in a straight line. I was pacing, in front of the rig, debating if I should just abandon it and head into the woods, when I heard it. Tires, big ones. Another truck. Finally, I wasn't alone. I ran into the road, waving my arms, yelling like a man on fire, but the sound didn't come closer. It came from behind me. I turned. There was no truck, only the sound. So loud it made my teeth rattle. Then, as suddenly as it started, it cut off and I was alone again. Except, not really. I got back into the cab. I don't even remember deciding to. The curtain to the sleeping bunk. It was open. Wide open. The space behind it, empty. But cold. Colder than before. Like a freezer with the door cracked open. Then I looked in the mirror and saw it. The passenger seat indentation was deeper, like whatever was riding with me had gotten heavier, stronger, more real. I stared at it, breath fogging the glass, and then, in the windshield, I saw my own reflection, split in half. One side normal, the other side pale, grey, eyes hollow and black, smiling, and behind me, a third reflection. Not mine, not human. I didn't speak out loud. I didn't have. To the thing riding with me heard every thought. Why me? The reply came like a whisper across the back of my skull. Are you opened the door? What are you? The last thing you'll ever see. And then came a new phrase, one I hadn't heard before. Return what was taken, and the loop breaks. I sat in stunned silence, my heart hammering. What was taken? I didn't take anything, did I? That's when it hit me. A memory I'd buried years ago on a road like this, a foggy stretch, middle of nowhere. I'd hit something, or someone. It was late. I was half asleep. I never saw their face, I never stopped. I told myself it was a deer. I made myself believe that. But now I knew the truth. This wasn't a haunting. This was retribution. I floored the truck again, trying to outrun the guilt. The whispers, the stench of cold death beside me. But the road just bent into another turn, and another, and another. Back to mile marker 237. I screamed until my throat cracked. I was trapped. The fog didn't just follow me, it owned me. I lost track of time. Could have been hours, could have been days. The only constant was that cursed mile marker 237. And the thing sitting beside me, whispering just beneath the sound of the engine. The fog still hadn't lifted. The road kept looping. I was either trapped in the world's most hellish roundabout, or I wasn't in the real world at all. But something had changed. The passenger, whatever it was, had stopped taunting. It was waiting for something, or maybe for me. To do what? I didn't know. Then it hit me again, harder this time. Return what was taken. I'd spent most of my life pretending nothing bad ever happened on that lonely stretch of highway years ago. A bump in the night, a jolt, a smear on the fender I washed off before sunrise. I told myself it was roadkill, but I knew, somewhere deep down, I knew I had hit someone. A hitchhiker maybe, a drifter, a person I left behind in the road because I was scared, half asleep, and thinking more about my delivery window than a life I might have taken. Now here I was, years later, caught in a looping road of my own making. And the thing beside me wasn't just haunting me, it was the one I left behind. I don't remember falling asleep, again. But when I woke up, there was no fog. The road stretched clear ahead, sunlight cutting through the trees, the sky open and clean for the first time in days or weeks or years. The GPS chirped, "Continue straight for 3 miles." I blinked. I hadn't heard a GPS voice in ages. It felt wrong, like a trap. But I followed it. At exactly 3 miles, a road appeared on the right, a cracked, overgrown path barely wide enough for the truck. But I knew this place. Even if the trees had changed, even if the pavement had aged, this was the spot, where I'd hit him, where I'd left him, I pulled over and shut off the engine. The whispering stopped. The silence was almost worse. I stepped out of the truck, boots crunching on gravel and dead leaves. The air felt still, heavy, sacred, like the place was holding its breath. I walked to the shoulder, heart pounding. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I couldn't run anymore. This was it. There was no more road until I gave something back. I didn't have a body. I didn't even have a name. So I gave him the only thing I had left. Myself. I stood in that spot and whispered into the trees. I remember you. No wind, no whisper back, just a cold presence behind me and a hand on my shoulder. I turned. He wasn't monstrous. He wasn't angry, just sad. A pale, gaunt man with hollow eyes and a face blurred around the edges, like a memory too faded to focus on. He didn't speak, but he didn't have to. I knelt down, lowered my head and whispered again, "I'm sorry." The trees shivered, the air trembled, and then he was gone. Back in the truck, the cab was warm again. The curtain, still. The mirrors, normal. The seat beside me, empty. The GPS voice returned. Turn left in 500 feet. And this time, the road didn't loop. I made it to my drop-off. Late, dirty, shaken but alive. They signed for the load like nothing had happened, as if I hadn't just escaped from something ancient and unforgiving, as if I hadn't just walked through my own personal purgatory. I didn't tell them anything. Who would? Believe me, who would care? Weeks passed. I tried to go back to normal. I took other jobs, drove other routes, but every so often I pass a highway sign. Mile marker 237. Sometimes I glance in the mirror and swear I see him again, just for a second, watching, not angry, just making sure I remember. Because if there's one thing I've learned out on these roads, it's that the unseen never forgets. You know the kind of night that feels off right from the start? The kind where your instincts are screaming at you, but you can't put your finger on what's wrong. Yeah, this one of those nights. I'd been driving for hours, the truck's engine, humming a constant lullaby, the lights flickering on the horizon like faint ghosts in the distance, the kind of quiet you can only get out here on these stretches of road that seem to go on forever. Route 85 had always been a peaceful one, stretching through the hills and pines, the kind of road you could fall asleep on if you weren't careful. But tonight, the road felt like it was closing in. The air was thick, and there was this odd stillness in the air, like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. But what, I couldn't tell. The rig was empty. Nothing but space in the back, save for a few pallets and the usual packing material. A deadhead run, easy. The kind of job that didn't need much attention, so I had time to think, time to let my mind wander as the miles slipped away beneath the tires. Around 2:30 a.m., I saw the sign up ahead. Wait station ahead. I wasn't expecting any issues. After all, the truck was empty. I'd been over the load before leaving the yard, checked the axles, the tires, the trailer. Everything was in tip-top shape. But as I rolled into the station, something inside me gave a little twitch. Maybe it was the weird weight of the night, or maybe it was the fog rolling in thick and heavy. But I had a feeling, one of those gut feelings, you know, that something wasn't right. I pulled up to the scale, waiting for the green light to tell me I could go. The station was dim, the overhead lights flickering, buzzing like they hadn't been serviced in a while. The entire setup looked like it belonged in a ghost town, abandoned and forgotten, the kind of place where time stood still. After a moment, a crackling voice came through the intercom. It was the wait station attendant. "Your load's overweight," she said. I raised an eyebrow, confused. "Overweight? I'm empty. I don't have anything back there." There was a long pause, the kind that made you feel like the person on the other end was checking something important. Finally, she came back, her voice a little less sure. "I'm gonna need you to pull forward. We'll double-check." I did as told, rolling the rig forward slowly, my eyes glancing nervously at the scale readout. It was flickering, some of the numbers scrambling before they locked in place. 26 pounds, the voice came again, this time more urgent. Overweight by exactly 126 pounds. I felt my pulse skip a beat. What the hell, I thought. My mind raced. I had checked everything. I even got out and did a physical inspection of the trailer before I left the yard. There was nothing in there, no hidden cargo, no stray packages, just an empty rig. Something wasn't adding up. Are you sure about this? I asked, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. I've got nothing back there but air and a couple of pallets. There was a pause on the line. Then the voice crackled back, sounding a little tense. I don't know what to tell you, sir. You're 126 pounds overweight. You're going to have to pull around to the inspection area. I rolled my eyes, muttering, under my breath. This was ridiculous. It wasn't like I was hauling a load of rocks or bricks, but whatever it was, I was stuck here. No way I was getting out of this without some kind of check. As I pulled forward, I spotted the attendant in the booth, standing at the window, peering down at the monitor. Her hands were moving quickly over the controls, but her eyes never left the screen. She looked nervous, too nervous. I killed the engine, got out of the truck and walked toward her. Hey, what's the deal? I called out. I've got an empty rig, no load, I don't get it. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped out from behind the booth, her bright neon vest glowing against the dim light. She was looking at the back of my trailer, with a look that made my stomach tighten. Come take a look for yourself, she said in a voice that didn't sound right. There was something off about it, like she was trying to keep her fear hidden, but it was slipping through the cracks. You're gonna want to see this. I followed her to the back of the trailer. My boots crunched on the gravel, the only sound breaking the heavy silence of the night. She pointed at the rear axle, her finger trembling. There's something down there, she said. I bent down to get a better look. At first I thought maybe it was a shadow, a trick of the light. But no. As my eyes adjusted to the dim light, I saw it. There, beneath the axle, was a shape. It wasn't solid, more like a shifting darkness that clung to the steel. It was small, no bigger than a human hand, but the moment I locked my eyes on it, it moved. I blinked and looked again. The shape slid across the pavement, melding into the shadows like it was part of the darkness itself. My heart slammed into my chest. What the hell is that? I stammered, my voice cracking as the words left my mouth. She didn't answer. She took a step back, her hands raised as if she was trying to keep herself from touching the thing, whatever it was down there. I've seen things like this before, she said in a low voice, so quietly I had to strain to hear. Not often, but enough, she shuddered. Whatever's riding with you, it's not supposed to be here. You need to check your axles. You've got something unseen on your rig. Before I could respond, the shape below the axle seemed to dissolve into the darkness, vanishing without a trace. But the scale still read 126 pounds overweight. I stood there unsure of what I was looking at or what was going on as the chill of the night crawled up my spine. I'm free to go, right? I asked, my voice shaky. The attendant didn't respond right away. She just took a step back, still staring at the spot where the shadow had disappeared. Just go, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. But don't stop until you're out of here. And don't come back. I didn't argue. I climbed back into the truck, my hands still trembling on the wheel, and pulled off, not sure what I'd just seen or what I was even dealing with. But something was with me, something that shouldn't have been, and it wasn't going away. As I rolled down the dark, fog-covered highway, my mind raced. I looked in the rear view, half expecting to see something, or someone, hanging off the back of the trailer. But nothing. Just the road, the darkness, and the strange, haunting weight that still clung to the rig. I reached for the CB, almost out of habit. There was a strange kind of comfort in hearing the buzz of other voices on the line. Breaker 19, I muttered, my fingers trembling as I gripped the mic. Anyone out there? Anyone picking up? For a moment there was nothing but static, just the familiar crackle and hiss of the airwaves. Then the voice came through. It wasn't another trucker. It wasn't even human. It was low, grating, like a throat trying to cough up something that had been stuck for years. The voice rasped. Through the static, each word slow and deliberate. 26 pounds. The line went dead. I sat frozen, the mic still in my hand, heart pounding in my chest. The air around me felt heavier now, suffocating. I glanced in the rear-view mirror again. Still nothing. But whatever was riding with me, it was getting closer. The road stretched on ahead like a black ribbon unfurling in the night. The headlights from my rig cut through the darkness, illuminating the fog that clung to the asphalt. But even the headlights couldn't chase away the creeping sense of dread that had settled in my gut. The eerie feeling that had started at the wait station still hadn't let go. It was like something invisible was pressing down on the truck, something that shouldn't have been there. And whatever it was, it had been hiding beneath my axle, waiting for me to notice. I kept my eyes on the road, but my thoughts were a million miles away, stuck on that moment back at the scale. The shadow, the way it moved, no, how it shifted. It wasn't right. It was like a piece of the darkness itself, pulling on the trailer, making the weight just a bit too much. But how? There was nothing in the back. I had checked. I gripped. The wheel tighter, the tension in my shoulders building. I couldn't stop thinking about that damn number. 126 pounds. It kept repeating in my mind like a chant. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that shadow crawling underneath the truck. I needed to shake it off, focus. It was just a fluke, right? Maybe the scales were off, maybe the attendant misread the weight, maybe it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. The CB crackled to life again, pulling me from my thoughts. I picked up the mic without thinking. "Breaker 19, I said, my voice sounding shakier than I wanted. "Anyone out there?" I waited, staring into the fog ahead, hoping for a response, any kind of confirmation that there were other truckers on the road, that everything was normal. Static. Then a voice. It wasn't another trucker. It wasn't even close to the usual chatter. It was that same voice from earlier, the one that sounded like it had been dragged through years of rusted metal. 126 pounds. The words hit me like a slap and my heart skipped. My hands went cold and I gripped the mic harder, like I could somehow make sense of this if I just held on tight enough. "What the hell is this?" I muttered, looking in the rear view again. But the fog was still there, thick and heavy, swallowing up the world behind me. I couldn't see a damn thing. It was like the whole world had been smothered by it. The voice on the CB crackled again, but this time it sounded different. As if something was trying to say something through a long, drawn-out hiss, almost like a whispering breath. "It's coming. It's with you. Ride. It's on the axles. Ride." I slammed the mic back into its holder. I didn't want to hear it anymore. It wasn't the voice of a trucker. It wasn't even a human voice. Something was wrong. I wasn't just dealing with a glitch or some crazy frequency interference. No, there was something else on the airwaves with me, something that knew exactly what had happened back at the wait station. It knew about the 126 pounds. I shook my head, trying to clear it. "Get a grip, man," I muttered to myself. "You're just tired. You're hearing things. It's the isolation, it's nothing." But even as I said it, the words didn't sit right. The feeling was growing stronger. I could feel it now, gnawing at my mind. Something wasn't right, and I was stuck in the middle of it. I glanced at the clock on the dash, 3:15 a.m. I was about an hour away from the next truck stop. I could stop, get some coffee, stretch my legs, maybe talk to a few other drivers. A little human interaction was all I needed, to shake off the anxiety crawling under my skin. But something told me to keep driving, to push on through the night, straight through to the next stop, even if it meant more hours of eerie silence. Kept my foot on the gas, the engine humming steadily beneath me, but the unease never left. It hovered there like a shadow in the corner of my eye, always just out of sight, but never out of mind. I turned the CB back on, my fingers trembling. As I reached for the mic again, "Breaker 19, I said, my voice forced and steady. "Anyone else out there on this stretch?" Static, more static. Then a crackling voice far away but still clear. "Yeah, you got a trucker on the line." I felt a small sense of relief, even though I knew I had to be careful. This could be anyone who could have picked up on my call, but the familiarity of hearing a human voice again was almost comforting. I wasn't alone on this stretch, at least. "You copy?" the voice said, a little gravelly but normal enough. "Yeah, I copy," I said, leaning back in my seat. "Look, I need to ask something, and it's going to sound a little strange, but You ever had something weird happen at a wait station? There was a long pause on the other end. Strange how? I hesitated, not sure how to even describe what had happened without sounding like I was losing my mind. But then the words came out anyway. Like getting weighed as overweight even though you're empty? And then hearing voices on the radio talking about the exact weight. Another pause. I've heard stories, the voice said finally, sounding more cautious now. Not sure I believe them, though. There's talk about a rig that's been hauling something it shouldn't have. Something that causes the weight to shift, and the driver never notices. I sat up straighter in the seat, my throat went dry. Wait, what? What do you mean? What's that got to do with the radio? The voice on the other end was quiet for a moment, then answered in a whisper like he was afraid someone might hear him. Some people say it's something, like a curse, a creature that attaches to the axles of rigs riding with you. It causes the weight to change, messes with your cargo, messes with your head. I could hear him inhale deeply, his voice shaky now. Some folks say it's an omen. If you keep going, you're carrying it with you, and there's no getting rid of it, not unless you're willing to give it a ride. I felt the chill creep up my spine again, colder than ever before. Was this guy trying to scare me? Or was? He's serious, it didn't matter. I'd been a trucker for too long to buy into tall tales or superstitions. But this wasn't just some creepy story. This felt real. The weight, the strange voices, the shadow under my rig. It was all too much. I don't know, man, I said, my voice low. But I've got 126 pounds that I can't explain and a feeling like I'm being watched. I looked in the mirror again. The fog was even thicker now, the headlights almost swallowed by it. And this feeling that something's riding with me. I'm not sure how much more of this I can take. The voice on the CB went quiet for a moment. Then, with a soft exhale, he said, "You've got two options. Pull over, call it quits, get someone to check your axles, or you keep going. But know this. Once it's with you, it doesn't let go. You'll be carrying that thing, with you for the rest of your run." I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. "Thanks for the advice," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "but I'll figure it out myself." I clicked the mic off and threw it back in its holder. The hum of the engine seemed louder now, the fog thicker, the road longer. Something was coming. Something had attached itself to my rig, and I was too deep into this run to turn back. I drove on, knowing deep down that the weight I was carrying wasn't just on the axles. It was in the air, hanging around me, wrapping itself into the very essence of the night. And no matter how hard I tried to shake it off, I couldn't escape the fact that I wasn't alone on the road anymore. The fog hadn't lifted. If anything, it had grown thicker, more oppressive. It was like a blanket that smothered everything, muting the world outside the truck. The only sound was the steady hum of the engine and the occasional rattle of the rig as it rumbled down the highway. But even that felt wrong. It felt distant, like the truck was moving of its own accord, pulling me deeper into something I couldn't see or understand. I glanced in the rearview mirror again. Nothing. Just the endless expanse of fog, the road winding behind me, and the faint glow of the headlights pushing through the white mist, like weak fingers trying to reach the unseen. Still, that feeling lingered. That weight. I swallowed hard and reached for the CB again, even though I didn't want to. I had to know. Maybe there was someone else out here who could tell me what was really going on. Maybe I wasn't crazy. Maybe the voices weren't just... In my head, I keyed the mic. "Breaker 19, I called, my voice tight, strained. "Anyone else out there? Over." The static was louder this time. The buzz seemed to vibrate through my chest as I waited for a response. Then, finally, a voice crackled through the airwaves. "Yeah, what's up?" A man's voice responded. Low and gruff, like he'd been chewing gravel for breakfast. I felt a surge of relief. Finally, a real person. Someone who could help. I needed it more than ever. "Listen, I'm having some weird shit going on with my rig," I said quickly, not sure where to start. I pulled up to the weigh station, and they said my truck was 126 pounds overweight. But it's empty, man. There's nothing in the back. And then I've been hearing stuff on the radio, like some damn ghost is talking to me. And the fog, it's thicker than I've ever seen it. Something's off. You ever heard of anything like this? The line went silent for a long moment. Too long. It felt like the guy on the other end was thinking, trying to figure out if he should respond. Maybe he thought I was just another trucker on the edge, trying to spin a story to pass the time. Finally, he spoke again, but his voice was different. It was hushed, careful, like he was afraid to say the wrong thing. "You're on 85, right?" he asked. I froze. "Yeah," I answered slowly. "How'd you know?" "Been driving that route for over 30 years, he said, and there was a strange note of finality in his tone. "Look, I don't know what's going on with you, but I've heard stories. That stretch of road, it's bad luck. Always has been. Drivers get pulled into that fog and they never come back. Not all of them. Some just disappear." My grip tightened on the mic. Was he messing with me? Was he just telling stories to spook the new guy? "Disappear?" I repeated, trying to sound dismissive. "Come on, man, I'm just asking about this weight thing. What's that got to do with anything?" He sighed, a long, weary exhale. "You're not listening," he said, sounding frustrated now. "I'm telling you, something's attached to that stretch of highway. I've seen it, heard it. The weight, you think it's just about numbers, but it's not. It's a signal. Something riding your axles. It messes with the truck, messes with your mind. It rides you, man. That's what the weight is. It's a marker, a sign. When you get stuck with that 126 pounds, it means it's already on you. And if you keep going, you're just feeding it." The words hung in the air, filling the silence between us, thick and heavy. My heart started racing again, the terror creeping back into my chest like a cold wind. I tried to push it down, tried to tell myself it was all nonsense. But the unease in my stomach wouldn't leave. "Feeding it?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Feeding it how?" There was a long pause, and then the man's voice dropped even lower. "The fog, the weight, the voices, they're all part of it. They won't let go. You're not just hauling freight anymore, you're hauling something else," he said, his voice trembling now. "That's why you can't get rid of the weight. That's why the axles don't ever come back to zero. The creature's inside your truck, inside the wheels, inside your head. And if you keep driving, it'll feed off you until it takes what it needs." I couldn't speak. My mouth went dry, and my vision seemed to blur for a moment, like I was seeing the world through a fogged window. "Pull off the road," the voice urged, now frantic. "You've got to pull off before it's too late. Don't keep driving. It's not just the weight, it's what's coming for you." I gripped the mic, my knuckles white, my hands slick with sweat. "What's coming for me?" I finally managed to croak. The line went dead. I stared at the CB, my hand still clutching the mic, the static hissing in my ear like some unnatural noise. I opened my mouth to speak again, but the words caught in my throat. There was no point. No one was going to answer. Not anymore. The engine hummed beneath me, steady, unrelenting, but I felt like I was losing control, like the truck was a different beast now, something more alive than just a machine. I snapped the mic back into its holder and slammed my hand against the dashboard, trying to force some sense back into my head. This was ridiculous. I wasn't some greenhorn who could be scared off by ghost stories and trucker folklore. I had been driving these roads for too long to fall for that crap. But even as I said it to myself, I knew deep down that this wasn't normal. This wasn't just a glitch in the system or a trucker's tall tale. This was something different. I stole another glance at the rear view. The fog was still there, wrapping around the truck like a predator's embrace. It was getting thicker, closer. That feeling, the one I couldn't shake, grew stronger. I could almost feel something watching me from the back of the rig. I could almost hear it breathing, a low rumbling sound that vibrated in the pit of my stomach. I reached for the steering wheel, my palms slick with sweat, and turned the truck's wheel slightly, trying to shake off the paranoia. But the weight, the real weight, was still there. 6 pounds, and it was growing. I wasn't sure if I could make it to the next stop. I wasn't sure if I even wanted to, but I knew one thing. There was something on my axles, and it wasn't letting go. The highway seemed endless, an infinite stretch of blacktop that curled around the horizon, swallowed whole by the fog. It wasn't normal, this fog. I'd driven through plenty of mist before, thick enough to make the road feel like it was swallowing you whole, but this was different. This was oppressive, like a blanket of cold breath pressing against my chest, and it kept getting worse. While I drove, every second that ticked by, it felt like the truck was sinking deeper into something I couldn't name. My hands gripped the wheel with more force than necessary, my knuckles white against the dark, worn leather of the steering wheel. The 126 pounds of weight was still there, pushing down on me, digging into the axles, feeding whatever it was that had latched onto my rig. I tried to ignore it, tried to convince myself that it was just my mind playing tricks, but deep down, I knew the truth. It was real. There was something inside my truck now. I wasn't just driving, I was carrying it. Turned the wheel hard, hoping the sudden maneuver would break whatever trance I was in. The truck swerved slightly, the tires screeching as the fog seemed to close in around me, swallowing the road on both sides. I wiped the sweat from my brow, trying to focus. My eyes darted between the road and the rearview mirror, but the fog was so thick I couldn't see anything. The CB crackled again, sending a jolt of cold through me. The voice came through again, distorted, but still clear enough to make my heart skip. It's already in you, it's in your rig, it's coming, it's getting closer. The static didn't leave. The voice was faint, like it was coming, from a great distance, but somehow it felt closer now, like it was crawling inside my truck, inside my mind. I slammed the mic back into the holder, trying to drown out the whispering voices that were now invading every part of my thoughts. My eyes were wide, frantically scanning the road ahead, but there was nothing. Nothing but the empty blackness, thick with fog. I needed to stop. I needed to pull over. My body ached for some relief, some break from the madness, but I couldn't. I just couldn't. Something inside me told me I wasn't supposed to stop. If I stopped, I would be trapped, stuck in this fog with it. The weight, the voices, the creeping sense of something alive and waiting. The road was starting to twist, curling tighter as the fog grew denser. I hit the brakes, slowing the rig down. My mind was in a haze. The 126 pounds of invisible cargo kept pressing against me. I could feel it in my bones now. It was as if the truck wasn't just heavy, it was suffocating. And then I heard it, a low, guttural growl. My heart skipped. I didn't know if it was coming from outside the truck or if it was just in my head, but the sound was unmistakable. It was low and rhythmic, like an animal breathing or something bigger than a man, just waiting to pounce. I swerved again, nearly throwing the truck off the road as the growl reverberated in the air around me. I turned to look out of the side window, but there was nothing in the fog. Just the same endless, eerie stretch of white and black. I pulled the truck back on course, my hands shaking, and I pressed down on the gas again, trying to push the fear out of my mind. "Get it together, man," I muttered to myself. "It's all in your head. It's just the isolation, the fog, it's not real." But deep down I knew it was real. Whatever was causing the weight, the growl, the voices, it was real, and it wasn't just in my head. It was on my axles, and it was hungry. The growl came again, louder this time, a deep, almost rumbling sound that rattled the truck like a jackhammer. It was so close, I could feel it vibrating through the metal. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Once more. This time I saw something, a shape. It was dark as the fog around it, a mass that seemed to shift and writhe beneath the truck, moving with a mind of its own. It wasn't just a shadow. It was a living thing coiling beneath the rig, its form undulating in the mirror. I could barely make it out, but there were shapes, long and sinuous, like writhing tendrils of smoke. And just for a moment, I could have sworn I saw something pale, almost human, moving beneath the truck. I slammed on the brakes, the truck screeching as it fought against the sudden stop. I twisted the wheel, sending it into a skid. I had to see what the hell that was, but as the truck slid to a stop, the shape disappeared. The fog swirled, concealing the road behind me. There was nothing. I sat there, heart hammering in my chest, the engine sputtering slightly as it settled into idle. I felt like I was losing it, like I was teetering on the edge of something horrible. Was I going crazy? I opened the door slowly, every muscle in my body tense. The fog rushed in thick and suffocating, crawling inside the cab with me, but I couldn't hear anything now, no growls, no whispers, just the hollow sound of the night pressing against my ears. I stepped out of the truck, my boots hitting the pavement with a dull thud. The air was so thick, it felt like I was swimming through it. I looked around, hoping to see something, anything, but the road ahead was lost in the fog, just like behind me. I leaned over, peering under the rig, my breath coming out in heavy puffs of steam as I searched for any sign of what had been moving beneath the truck. But there was nothing. Nothing at all. I took a step back, shaking my head in disbelief. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe it was just the stress, the isolation, the hours on the road playing tricks on my mind. Then I heard the sound again. The growl. It was louder now, closer, and the fog swirled again, gathering at the base of the truck. I looked down, my stomach dropping as I saw something wet and slick begin to pool beneath the wheels. It was dark, almost black, and it glistened like oil, but it wasn't oil. It was blood. The ground beneath me seemed to shift as the weight pressed down again, heavier this time. My knees buckled slightly, and I had to catch myself on the door of the rig to stay upright. The air grew colder, the fog thicker, and the growl became a hiss. Then there was a sudden thump from beneath the truck. I jumped back, heart racing. My feet were already moving before my brain even processed what had happened. I ran back to the driver's side, scrambling to get back in the truck. I slammed the door shut, locking it with shaking hands. I turned the key, the engine roaring to life, and without a second thought, I slammed my foot down on the accelerator. The truck lurched forward, the tires squealing as I shot down the road, no longer caring about the weight or the fog. All I wanted was to get out. As I sped away, I dared to look in the rearview mirror one last time. There was nothing in the fog, nothing but the empty stretch of road. And then something moved in the darkness. A shape, a shadow. It was crawling under. My truck. It was still with me. The truck barreled through the fog, tires groaning beneath the pressure, as I slammed my foot harder onto the gas. The road seemed to stretch on forever, an endless ribbon of blacktop swallowed by the soupy fog, but I couldn't look away from the rearview mirror. The shadow was still there, crawling beneath my rig, a dark mass that seemed to writhe with unnatural life. I could feel it. I could feel it feeding on the truck, feeding on me. I didn't know how much longer I could keep going like this, not with the weight pressing down on the axles, not with the growls getting louder, more intense. The low rumbling from beneath the truck was like the sound of an animal stalking, like it was waiting for something. I reached for the CB, but my fingers were shaking too badly. It was a reflex now, an attempt to ground myself in something, anything. But the mic slipped from my grip, crashing to the floor of the cab. I cursed under my breath, throwing my hand to the wheel as the truck veered dangerously toward the shoulder. I barely regained control. The growl came again, closer, louder, more intense. I had to pull over. I knew I had to. Every inch of my body screamed for it, but I couldn't make myself do it. Every time I thought about stopping, I remembered the man's voice on the CB, "Pull off the road before it's too late." But I hadn't stopped, and whatever was in the fog, whatever was under my rig, it was getting closer. I glanced at the gauges. The weight was still there, pressing down on the axles, as if something invisible had taken up residence in my truck. There was no way I could have gained that much weight, not with an empty trailer. Someone was riding with me, and it wasn't human. The truck seemed to shudder as if in agreement with my thoughts. The growl echoed again, so close it was like it was in the cab with me. It vibrated through my seat, my spine, the very bones in my body. I gritted my teeth and pushed the gas pedal further down. The fog was suffocating now. I couldn't see more than a few feet ahead, and it felt like the road had warped, twisted into some kind of nightmare maze. No matter how fast I drove, no matter how much I tried to outrun it, the fog kept catching up. I needed a place to stop. A gas station, a rest area, anything. But the road ahead was empty. For miles there was nothing, just me and the truck. And the thing underneath it. And then, in the distance, a flicker of light. A gas station. A diner. I squinted, trying to make out the shape of the lights through the thick fog. But it was hard to tell. It looked like a small building, maybe even a truck stop, but something about it seemed off. I was already too far gone to turn back now. I pushed the rig harder, praying the truck would make it to whatever light I'd seen. The shadow under the truck moved again. The truck hit a bump, a heavy thud. The trailer swerved slightly. I barely managed to hold it steady. That was it. I had to stop. I couldn't keep going like this. I pulled off the road, my hands clenching the wheel until my fingers cramped. The truck groaned, the tires squealing slightly as they dug into the wet, muddy shoulder. The fog surrounded me now, completely swallowing the road, making it hard to see anything except the dim glow of the lights from the building up ahead. As I stopped, I put the truck in park, my breath ragged, and sat there for a moment, just listening. The growl was still there, low and deep, but it felt farther away now. Maybe the thing under the truck had been spooked by the stop. Maybe it was waiting for something, biding its time. Or maybe, just maybe, it had found a new victim to latch. Onto the engine hummed quietly as I threw open the door and stepped into the thick fog. My boots squelched in the mud, the cold air biting at my skin. The dim glow from the gas station sign barely cut through the mist, but it was enough for me to make out the shape of a small, run-down building. A truck stop. I wasn't sure what. I expected. Maybe a friendly face behind the counter. Maybe some other drivers who had seen something similar. Maybe someone who could tell me I wasn't losing my mind. But the moment I stepped closer to the building, I knew something was wrong. There was no sound, no motion. It was completely still. No one was there. I hesitated at the door for a moment, my hand hovering over the handle. I could feel the tension in my shoulders, the weight of whatever was inside the truck pressing down on me. I didn't want to go in. I didn't want to open that door, but my legs moved before my brain could stop them. I stepped inside. The air was stale, and the faint smell of old coffee mixed with something else, something metallic. I couldn't place it. The flickering overhead lights hummed, casting strange shadows across the room. The counter was empty, and the shelves that lined the walls were mostly bare. No one in sight. But then I heard a voice. It was soft at first, barely, a whisper. But then it grew louder, more insistent. The voice was low and guttural, the kind that sent chills down your spine. Leave. Before it finds you. I froze. The voice came from the far end of the room, where a door stood ajar, leading into the back. The flickering light from the room cast a shadow across the floor, stretching like a hand that wanted to grab me. I wanted to run. I wanted to get back in the truck and drive away, but my legs wouldn't move. It was like the air in the room had thickened, making every movement feel like it was taking an eternity. Leave, the voice repeated, and this time I saw it. The shadow. It moved across the floor, fast and fluid, like something that wasn't supposed to be seen. It shifted and twisted, its form growing larger as it approached the door. It was there, in the darkness, waiting for me to make a move. I backed away slowly, my heart hammering in my chest. The cold sweat ran down my neck and I couldn't breathe. I turned, my feet finally finding the strength to move. But as I reached for the door, the growl came again. It was louder, closer. I looked up, and there, in the fogged-up window of the truck stop, I saw the shape beneath my rig again, looming just outside. But this time it wasn't crawling under my truck. This time it was standing upright. The thing under my axles was walking, and it was coming for me. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears as I gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, sweat trickling down my back. The fog outside had thickened, wrapping itself around the truck like a suffocating blanket. My breath came in shallow gasps, every exhale visible in the cold, damp air of the cab. I kept my eyes on the road, or what little I could see of it through the fog. It was like driving into nothingness, a world where the road stretched into an endless void, the truck moving faster and faster into the dark, endless unknown. But no matter how fast I went, no matter how hard I pressed the pedal to the floor, I couldn't outrun it. I had made a mistake. I should never have stopped at that truck stop. I should have kept going, even if the damn axles had been singing their horrible tune of impossible weight, even if the strange growls had started creeping in from beneath the truck. The warning had been there, clear as day. Leave before it finds you. But now it was too late. I looked at the rearview mirror again, nothing, just the fog. My hands shook as I glanced down at the dashboard. Everything seemed to be in order, the lights flickering just a bit, the engine purring, but something in my gut told me the calm was only temporary. The beast under my axles had only taken a brief break. It wasn't finished. I reached for the CB mic, my fingers trembling. The static buzzed through the speakers, the only sound in the cab besides my ragged breathing. But then a voice crackled through the speaker again, the same voice from earlier. "You can't outrun it. It's already inside." I slammed my fist down onto the dashboard in frustration, my breath quickening. I couldn't do this anymore. I had to stop. I had to know what the hell was happening. "Who are you?" I shouted, barely able to hear myself over the thundering pulse in my ears. "So what the hell is going on? What do you mean it's inside?" The voice, distant and hollow, answered, "It's in the rig. It's in your blood now. You can't escape it. It's already feeding on you." A cold shiver ran down my spine as I listened to those words, trying to make sense of them. It sounded insane. But when I glanced back into the rearview mirror once more, I didn't see the endless stretch of road. I saw it. The thing beneath my rig. The creature. The shadow that had started this whole damn nightmare. It was there again, only now it was closer, much closer. The fog parted, almost as if it had been waiting for the moment, and I saw the twisted, gargantuan form of the creature, crawling beneath the rig, its limbs jerking unnaturally with every movement. Its form was less defined now, more fluid, more organic, like it was constantly changing. But the eyes, those black, empty pits, those hadn't changed. They were, still there, watching me. I nearly lost control of the truck. My hands flew to the wheel as the truck swerved violently. The thing was right under me, the weight on the axles increasing again. The gauge was spiking, and I could feel it. Whatever was under me was clawing its way into my truck, trying to breach the undercarriage, trying to get in. I jerked the wheel to the left, narrowly avoiding the guardrail, my heart hammering in my chest as I fought for control. But it was futile. The growl from beneath the truck intensified, like something was scraping against metal with terrible strength. I couldn't tell if it was coming from inside the cab or underneath. The sound surrounded me, pressing in from all sides, filling the truck with that awful, guttural noise. I slammed on the brakes. The truck screeched in protest, the tires fighting, full grip against the wet road. But I didn't stop in time. The thing caught up. With a violent lurch, the truck skidded off the road and into the muddy shoulder. The brakes squealed again, and then there was nothing but the sound of wet, crushing earth and the heavy, unnatural growl reverberating in the cabin. I sat frozen, my hands still locked on the wheel, unable to move. My heart was pounding in my chest like it was trying to break free. The static from the CB seemed louder now, and the growl seemed to resonate deeper, more inescapable. "You should have stopped." The voice crackled again. I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand answers. But my voice wouldn't come. A thud shook the cab, then another, and the truck jolted harder. I looked through the windshield and saw a flash of movement. Something was moving beneath the truck. The shadow. The thing. It was climbing onto the truck now. I reached for the door handle, desperate to get out, desperate to escape. But before I could open it, a horrifying crack echoed through the cab. The truck's frame groaned in protest, and the entire rig bucked forward, almost as if something had clawed its way inside. The weight on the axles shifted again, pressing down even harder now, more than it ever had before. My hands slipped off the wheel as the truck groaned, its axles screeching in protest. And then, through the rearview mirror, I saw it. A face. A twisted, horrific face. The thing from beneath my truck. It had climbed up, and now it was there, staring at me through the mirror. Its eyes were empty black pits, and its mouth stretched wide, impossibly wide, showing rows of jagged teeth like it was smiling. "It's too late," the voice on the CB said, cold and final. I slammed my foot down on the accelerator, tearing, away from the shoulder with a violent jerk. The truck surged forward, the tires screeching as I tried to pull away from whatever the hell had attached itself to my rig. The shadowy face still lingered in the rearview mirror, its distorted grin widening as I sped into the fog. The road ahead seemed endless. No matter how fast I drove, no matter how far I went, the thing was still there. I could hear its growls, feel it. It was inside, in the truck, in my mind, in my blood. And then the truck hit a bump, a hard thud. The wheels screeched, and the back of the rig tilted at an odd angle. I felt the truck jerk as if something had grabbed onto the back. I dared a glance in the mirror, but this time I didn't see the creature. No, what I saw was worse. The back of the trailer was opening, and from inside a dozen pairs of eyes stared back at me. Empty, hollow, soulless. There were things inside the trailer. Faces, shapes, things that I couldn't even begin to understand, but they were there, watching me. It's time. The voice on the CB whispered. A chill shot down my spine, and I knew what was coming. The thing beneath my axles, the thing that had latched onto me and my truck, wasn't just feeding on me, it was feeding on all of us. I glanced at the road ahead. The fog was closing in again, tighter, suffocating. I couldn't see beyond the glow of my headlights, but I felt it. I felt the weight, the presence, the thing that had claimed the axles, the truck, the very road. And I knew. It was only a matter of time before I was consumed, just like the others, just like the ones inside. The thing beneath my rig was hungry, and I was next.